Welcome to the Iolani School podcast. I'm John Tamanaha, Director of Interactive Media and frequent morning visitor to the faculty lounge where coffee is usually accompanied by good conversation. This podcast project strives to share that sort of experience as we visit with people associated with Iolani School to hear their personal stories. This is our 21st episode, and this time we went to the lower school and sat down with Mrs. Melanie Pfingsten. A graduate of the Kamehameha Schools and Dartmouth College, she has been a member of our Iolani Ohana since 2001, but this is her first year as the Dean of the lower school, with its exciting new spaces and forthcoming growth this summer. We talked about what her busy days are like and what excites her most about being at the helm of our K-6 campus. But she's not only the dean of the lower school, she's also a parent of lower schoolers, which brings a valuable perspective. As our K-12 dean of studies for the previous 4 years, she knows our school extremely well and played a leadership role in creating Iolani's successful distance learning and reopening plan as the outbreak of the pandemic began. She also found some silver lining around this crisis of our time, as we are shown every day what one team looks like. And finally, we posed the questions: does she miss being an upper school history teacher? And why is learning about our past so important? Thanks for downloading. Please enjoy. I walked through the lower school this morning.
Yeah.
And it sounds like an exaggeration, but I was thinking, and it was recess time and you go around, but it's a magical place.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, it's super special.
Yeah.
In 2021.
Yeah.
How do you feel when you walk around?
Oh my gosh. So the children have this beautiful innocence and then energy and joy. Recess is a great time to catch that, right? Because they're out of class and they're playing with their friends. I got an idea from Kirk Uegio to wear a tag, right? Because I thought, okay, how am I going to get to know kids? I'd like to get to know as many of them by name. And so I started wearing a sticker that had a joke on it and just walking around. And then after the first day I would kneel down in different places, K1, 2, 3, and say, you want to hear my joke? You know, and of course, yes, let me hear your joke.
It's the joke lady.
I mean, but no reservation. You know, as they get older, maybe the sixth graders were a little bit like, who are you? Yeah. And you're an adult. Should I really be consorting with you? But the younger, and even the sixth graders, of course, let's hear your joke, right? Yeah. And then the jokes are silly, you know, but they laugh. Oh, or I don't get it. Like I mean, they just want to have a conversation, and then they stay, and then pretty soon they put their hand on your arm so every day I have a different joke. And after the very first day, because I thought, okay, they're never going to remember me. Pfingsten, for goodness sake, that name, right? So every time I bent down, I would say, oh, I'm the dean of the lower school. I'm Mrs. Pfingsten. I don't even know if they can say my name. But I go around the next day, and they're like, Mrs. Pfingsten, what's the joke of the day? And again, the immediate sort of recognition, we're friends.
Yeah.
We're all, we're here now together. I don't even know if they know I'm the dean. I'm not sure. But the trust of the adults and the love that's there for the people that take care of them it's contagious. Or I work the auto lines in the morning whenever I can. And you open the doors and they come out and they're like, good morning. I said, good morning. And then, good morning, Mrs. Pfingsten. Just so happy to be arriving, bouncing out of the car. And their parents at that time are really happy to be dropping them off too. So there's waves from the car. And then even with the adults, JT, the teachers, they care a lot about each other. They're always sort of checking in with each other, but not just about work. Yeah. They eat lunch together. They share their family situations with each other. we try and know, right, what are the celebrations happening, where do people need support if it's appropriate, and there's always a helping hand, or is everything okay, or even amongst the adults.
Yeah, I like those birthday celebrations.
Yeah.
The monthly birthday celebrations
Yes.
for everybody whose birthday is in
Yeah.
November, and
Yeah.
very cool. You mentioned opening the door at the auto line. I was down there on the first day of school. For me, the first day of school is about the seniors and the kindergartners.
Yeah.
And it's so different. When my daughter was in kindergarten and in many of the previous years, a parent or both parents walked the child down to the red door and the yellow door and all that.
Yeah.
And talk to other parents, and you see your son or daughter go into the room and wave and you say hi to the teacher. Currently, there's a drop-off at the K1 auto line. And that morning it was drizzling a little bit, and you were out there. I think you had a lei on. It was awesome, and it struck me. My goodness, what a responsibility! Because you could see in the face of the children and the parents that this was the first day of school, and it runs a wide spectrum of expressions, but it's the first day of school.
Yeah.
But one commonality is, and as parents, you and I both know this extremely well. That's your pride and joy. And that pride and joy was coming out of that back seat, sometimes helped out of a chair and all that. But you're the dean of the lower school now, and you're in charge of so many pride and joys in their education.
Yeah.
It's hard for someone like me to conceptualize the responsibility that administrators such as yourself have. What does that feel like?
No.
On the first day of school or any day of school?
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. It is a heavy burden.
Yeah.
It is a heavy, heavy burden. I think of it a lot. On occasion, it keeps me up or wakes me up.
I would think
depending on the situation. But I'll tell you, so Natalie, who's our associate dean, and I were both new this year. And we spent a ton of time together this summer, just poring over all the documents of the lower school, the handbooks and everything we could find, just to prepare ourselves, and revising the COVID policies. And then I spent the summer, and I had a Zoom meeting with every faculty and staff member, like a half an hour.
Wow.
just to get to know people, but also one-on-one. Yeah.
Wow.
So over the course of the summer. And honestly, JT, by the time the first day of school came around, I thought, okay, we've done everything we can. But I was also very aware that it's still new. And we couldn't have caught everything, maybe.
Every day is different.
Right.
Yeah.
And I sort of braced myself for, okay, what's going to happen today? First day of school and then the second day of school. And it went so smoothly. So I thought to myself at the end, so my husband asked me at the end of the day, because I told him, I'm nervous. I wonder what's going to happen. So he said, okay, so how was it? And I said, you know what? It all happened and really smoothly. And he said, so what were you worried about? And I realized at that moment that I thought that I was the person making the lower school run. And that's just not the case. I think I'm an important person.
Yeah,
I understand my leadership and the responsibility that carries, but all the teachers, all the staff, all the TAs and our operations gang, our plant guy, everybody takes very, very seriously their responsibility and the carrying out of the responsibility. And they do it every day to the very best of their abilities. Maybe sometimes I think Iolani people, we're very, perfection oriented at times. So I think it stresses us out. But in the end, it all works out because everybody carries their load.
Yeah. And then some. And I remember seeing the Dean of Admission, Kelly Monaco, down there. The Director of Security, Philip Buchanan, was down there. Everybody's here.
We had teachers coming into the office, and we still do, saying, everything okay? You guys have any questions? Because they know that we might be in the second quarter, but it's still a new second quarter for us. We've not experienced the second quarter. So we'll have folks come in and just say, can I tell you about this thing that usually happens at this time of year, or letting us know if we missed something, or we'll just go out and say, okay, somebody who's been here for longer than us, tell us, is this how it's done or it has been done? So again, so Hawaiians have a saying, it's "Aohe hana nui ke alu'ia," and it means no task is too great when many hands are helping. And it really is that way. And it helps me to remember that my responsibility as the dean is a big one, but I share the burden of the school with everyone. And I just feel really grateful for the people who shoulder their burden so well.
That's really an awesome saying that should be added to our one team ethos.
Yeah.
It's really what we've been talking about for the last few minutes.
Yeah.
I spent a year as a student in the lower school. I think directly above us.
Oh.
Mrs. Carol Murphy's yellow door, sixth grade.
Yeah.
That was 40 years ago. 1981 school year.
Yeah.
And then I came back to work here 11 years ago. And the lower school is largely the same. The IE building, the extension over there in the main part of the classroom buildings, the covering over the courts, which creates the one team field house. Really appreciated to have that. But the footprint and the feel was largely the same, and that's great. But within the last few years, while I've been working here, so much has changed. The lower school has been transformed. You've got the new K1 community, which now I think we're fully used to now. Before it was like, whoa, look at this.
Yeah.
With the Wall Family Playground and the magic that happens there. The Sydney and Minnie Kosasa Performance Studios and Courtyard, connected to the Kaneshiro Science and Innovation Center, and we've got reconfigured classrooms, and you've got more things on the way. It's really special, the spaces that have been created for the students here.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be in the full swing and start a school year with these spaces? And
oh my gosh, there's so much to say about that.
Yeah.
So my children were in the old spaces.
Yeah.
My older girl is in fifth grade now, so she didn't get to do K1. And then my younger girl was in first grade when K1 opened up, so she had first grade. Anyway, and I want to say my daughters and then the alums that I know, or even the older kids that I know, have very warm memories of the colored doors.
Yeah.
And the teachers that taught in those rooms, they made them warm places to learn. But they were old barracks. In the end, they were barracks, right? But it's a credit to our teachers that they made them into these beautiful homes for young kids. And that feeling, I think we work really hard to kind of transfer. It doesn't matter if you were in an old barracks or are now in our state-of-the-art, K1 spaces or our performance spaces or our special spaces. Is the space still that warm home for kids? So we really work to kind of maintain that feeling. The change, I think, and I think it's a positive one, is when kids are in spaces, I think spaces, as much as books or teaching or lessons, teach kids what they can expect for themselves, for their learning, and for their lives. If you're in a dance studio that's not big enough for you to really move your body in the creative ways that the teacher might be trying to help you do, there's a limitation there. The child learns that there's a limitation to how I can move my body and dance. And then you go into the new dance space, which, oh my gosh, the ceiling is high and the floor space is 4 times as big. And you see the kind of movement that kids are making. And they learn, right, what they can expect of themselves as dancers, as musicians, as scientists, as designers. And so I think, the school's investment in the children by creating spaces that teach them, along with the teachers who are making the warm home and delivering excellent curriculum, along with the families that contribute so much to us and to their children. It's just, I think, given the message, first and foremost to the kids, but then certainly to families and to the community, that the value of an Iolani education begins at kindergarten. It doesn't begin in the upper school with college preparation. It begins in kindergarten. And that's exciting.
You mentioned the dance studio, and I think of that space, and I think of the Fab Lab and the music space and the K1. I saw them in those outdoor patios this morning and all of those things. But the space, we use that word space. We don't say it's a new classroom or it's a new space. But the space is so important. And in the dance realm, Lisa Simone could ask the students to do the same things that she's asking them to do today in her old space. But I think, and I'm not a kindergartner or a 6th grader, but when I see it, it just makes so much sense to them. When she's saying reach, and then you can see the tree out there in the ceiling, and there's space for them to move, spread out. And in the Fab Lab area, there's space to spread out and collaborate and have robots move about. And it's really awesome to see. And I think it makes it just becomes natural to the students to do these things. So is it a case now that we identified that we need new spaces or larger spaces or more spaces designed a certain way, and now those spaces are here? Are we in kind of a phase where we're learning how to utilize these spaces to the best of our ability and in the Iolani way? Is that kind of the mode we're in now?
Yeah, and I think so. I think we are.
It's kind of like moving into a new house, and you're like, here, this is how we can use this area of our home. And,
and different spaces are in different phases of that. So we've had K1 the longest, and so you really see that the teachers have settled in. But what I think, it's been exciting to watch the teachers. The spaces are big enough and diverse enough that now within a classroom, you can have different learning zones. And again, I remember, going to visit my older girl in behind the red door, a beautiful, warm, and loving place, but it was small. But you go into one of the K classrooms, and there are the tables, which you would expect, the places for students to sit at a desk. But then there's the stage, and it looks like a loft. So suddenly there's this quiet, warm reading space. And then there's the centers that they're able to set up, whether they're going to go dress up or to the kitchen, but there's space for those things. So there's different zones for them to learn in different ways.
Everybody's different, and you find a comfortability in a certain type of area.
And then the outdoor, the patio, we teach science and art to the kindergartners and 1st graders actually out on their patios. And so again, attached to that space, I think in their mind, they don't go very, very far for those things. And I think the children learn that's part of my day. I learn math, I learn language arts, but then I go right outside, same classroom, just outside. And I learn science, and I have a garden, and I do watercolor, and so again, I think the spaces have brought opportunities for teachers to explore various ways of learning. But then also for the children to learn that their learning is one whole thing, not just like separated out.
It seems so natural now that we would go outside and be amongst plants and rain and birds and different things to learn and garden and spread out. Very cool.
Yeah.
What is your day like? Try to be honest, but I think if somebody followed you, they would not believe the things that you deal with and you oversee. But
okay, I'll tell you what my ideal day is like. My ideal day when everything goes like smoothly, which is a lot of days. I mean, we're laughing, but it's again because everybody shoulders their burden so well. It's really, really, really a lot of days. I like to start at the auto line and have children come out of the car, greet them by name if I can, say hello to parents.
That's awesome.
And then usually Natalie and I, so she's the associate dean, we're both opening auto line doors. So this might get too detailed. I don't know. So I open auto line doors from like 7 to 7:05, and then a whole bunch of our upper schoolers who work for us come to open doors. And I have to tell you, I love that about our auto line, that our older students, our older raters are opening doors for the younger students. I think it speaks volumes about who we are as a school, how the expectation is that like a family, older siblings take care of younger siblings, that's how it works. So usually they arrive in large numbers. It makes it not necessary for me to. So then I'll leave and I'll walk around and make it to as many classroom doors as I can just to say good morning to teachers. And then that also gives me a chance to check in if a teacher's been out sick, how are you? Or had a child out sick, so they were out sick or whatever. It gives me a chance to just quick touch base. And if not, I just say good morning because I think that's a good way to start the day. Somebody tell me good morning,
It's the best way.
And then I'll go back out because the upper schoolers have to leave at 7:30 to make it to their class on time. And then we'll open doors for the last 10 minutes. And then Natalie and I, the associate dean, we make a slow walk back to the office just to check in. Okay, what's happening today? Anything I can do for you? Anything you can do for me? We'll listen to the Oli. So there's an Oli that happens every morning, fourth grade. Fourth grade is every morning because they have Hawaiian studies as their social studies. But fifth grade joins them on Mondays and Fridays because fifth grade learned the Oli last year.
It's awesome when you're walking around and you hear them doing that in the morning.
So I'll just stand with them on those mornings. If it's a chapel day, I'll go to chapel if I can. And then I'll come back to my office. I did a quick email check to make sure, people have what they need to do what they need as best as I can. I try and visit at least 2 classrooms a day just to go to class and see, what are kids learning? How are teachers doing? Every morning, so at 8:40, so there's a 8:15 to 8:45 block. Sometimes I can get into a classroom there. Every morning at 8:45, our senior admin team meets. And that started during the pandemic and has not ended. But I think it's really, really valuable time. And sometimes we're only in for like 10 minutes together. And sometimes we need the hour because some things happened or whatever. But by that meeting, we've gotten to know each other really well. I mean, we had to do a lot together for the crisis, for the COVID crisis. But it's a valuable way because you'll hear what's going on with people and then you'll go, oh, for me, like, oh, that might affect the lower school if you guys do it like that. Upper school people, let's make sure we connect after to make sure that that's smooth. Okay, so that the upper school, so the senior admin meeting happens, and then I try and get into classrooms. I have a lower school leadership team. We meet once a week, and that team is made up of the counselors and our curriculum coordinator and our tech guy, and that team. I mean, same concept that Ohe Hananui Ke Aluia. Like, I have to say, Zach Leonard, who was the previous dean, created the lower school leadership team, and I've continued it. And I've told Zach this, that that team was one of the greatest gifts he left. Just the idea that you create a team of people who help to lead. it's very clear that I'm in the end the most, buck stops at me,
Yes.
all that. But again, to have a group of people who I can say, is this a thing? Like, is this how it works? Or I'm thinking of doing this. I'm thinking of doing this kind of communication. I'm thinking of, like, what do you guys think? What might the reaction be? What, and it's a group that will say, oh, don't forget to include so and so. Don't forget, what about the parents? Oh, what about the, and also we're just there for each other because we all have daily things that happen that, gosh, okay, what are we going to do about that situation? And it's hard. Some of the conversations are hard, so it's also support for one another. So anyway, that happens once a week. I try and walk around during the recesses and lunches and recesses. You heard my story about the joke, so I like to make my rounds if I can, wearing my joke.
They want to see you.
Yeah. And I want to be seen. Like I do want people to know that as much as possible, it is important for me to be out, be helping helping hold kids accountable if that's what's needed out there, or just thanking people. Our teachers, they teach, and then sometimes they have duty out there. So then they're out there for duty, then they come back in the room and teach some more. It's a different kind of responsibility than an upper school teacher, I think. With the volume of contact time, it's not always teaching time, but there's yard duty. So to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know you barely had time to like have a snack and use the restroom, and here you are, making sure kids are safe. And then the same thing at lunch. Luckily, we have lunch parents who come, but same thing. I thank them. Thanks for being here. This gives our teachers a chance, a half hour to like sit down and enjoy their lunch and take a deep breath before the afternoon starts. So I try again to make those rounds and again meet kids and thank people.
Yeah, to be available.
The afternoon, it's a very, very busy from like 7 a.m. to I would say 1. And then the day starts to wind down. That's very different than upper school, than my experience in the upper school. Because the lower school lets out at 2:15 and then 2:30.
Yeah.
And they're still after school. But there's not the volume of commitments that some of our older students have. And so the energy starts to wind down a little earlier in the day, which I think is appropriate. I think it's actually pleasant that it starts to just settle down, quiet down a little bit. And that's when I can kind of get back into my office and make phone calls and answer emails as best I can. And
we know how busy you are because we've been after you to set up an interview. And thank you for the time.
I'm sorry.
People might be listening to this saying, oh, they're sitting back having a nice conversation, but a casual conversation, but we've carved out this time and we really appreciate it. One thing that's kind of strikes me when we think about the lower school as parents is there's so many milestones in the lower school. The K, you have the Ho'olaulea, the grandparents' tea, and that's coming up here. And K1, you have the pumpkin patch. 2nd grade, families are forever. Space camp in 3rd grade, the mini society. The 4th grade trip to the Big Island, hopefully, and the 5th grade play, the 6th grade medieval fair, the camp, the biathlon, all of these things that the students remember throughout their schooling here and their lives, really. But I was thinking about it this morning. The parents are really the ones that kind of mark those milestones, because as a student you're like, oh great, it's space camp. But the parents who have been through it before or talked to people, it's a pretty close community, so everybody knows when somebody asks you, what year is your daughter? It's like, she's in 5th grade, and they'll say, oh, the 5th grade play, or next year she gets to go to camp, and all these sorts of things. But managing that, in terms of the parents, they can't come to a lot of these things. It's very different. So how do you manage that? And I guess, communicating with them kind of becomes a vital cog in some of your objectives.
I have a few things to say about that. I first and foremost, we can't wait to get to a place. It's going to have to do with our vaccination rate, where we can have parents back on campus. It is a totally vital part of the life of the lower school.
Yeah.
And it makes things more complicated. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, having more people on campus makes it more complicated, right?
Yeah.
But it's just not the fullest place that it should be without parents here.
That part seems
because
little different.
It's different in the upper school because they're becoming more independent of their parents.
Yeah.
We want that to happen.
Yeah.
But in the lower school, parents are our partners. I think of it like we're raising kids together, in a way, right? Because their kids spend a lot of time with us. Yeah. So we're raising kids together, and then when they're not here, we miss them. I mean, we do. We do miss them. We were having a conversation about events, right? So COVID has put a lens on things. But I think there have been silver linings. And so we were having a conversation about events. So of course, last year, like almost all events were just canceled. Like we were so lucky and blessed to just have school.
Yeah.
So, okay, sorry, we can't do grandparents' tea. Okay, sorry, we can't, but your kids can come to school.
Yeah, in person.
But now, and we want to push toward normalcy. Tim has made that clear, our head of school, and I appreciate that, that he's saying, between testing and vaccination, what can you do now? Don't simply sit back and not have any events, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what can we do now?
How can we make that work?
Yeah. And so we were looking over events, and we still don't have parents in the lower school because the youngest children, up until recently, haven't been vaccinated. But we were talking about, okay, what do events look like? And again, on an operational level, it is easier for us not to have those events. Easier, right? We don't have to figure out CURs and parking and changing the schedule and all that. But it's interesting what you said about milestones. That exact word came out in the conversation we were having in lower school leadership, actually, that the children mark those milestones. They mark the passage of the years.
Yes.
By those events. The parents mark the passage of those years by those events. And we have to be that. If anything, the COVID has taught us that we are an excellent school. We can do schooling. Mm-hmm. Kids are going to learn at Iolani School. But what has made schooling special are these milestones that kids get to celebrate. Yeah. Where the magic is, right? Where, that Halloween parade, the Halloween concert, the Christmas, the grandparents' tea, like those are magical moments of celebration and family and joy and expectation. And so we came to the conclusion, even though we couldn't have parents yet, we're still going to put on these events so that whether the parents get to, stream in or we send them the video, but certainly so that the children can mark the milestones, not by report cards or, those kinds of markers, because there are those and those are important as well, but by magical moments,
The lower school
is
a memory making machine.
Yeah.
There's all these memories that get built up.
Yeah.
And the students are having those, but maybe not so much the parents. But hopefully, like you said, soon.
Yeah, but you know what, JT? It's not an easy transition back from COVID. So something like sixth grade camp, which we just had. The teachers were so, I think, brave, right? Because at the time when we were planning it, we were going through that last wave, which had the highest numbers we had seen in the community yet. And we were, the sixth grade teachers and I were talking through, okay, well, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And it was like, yeah, what are we going to do? Maybe we're not going to do anything because look at the community conditions. But the 6th grade teachers knew that is a memory maker. Like when you ask an upper school kid who was a lower school kid, what they remember about lower school, 6th grade camp is like top of the list, the first 1 or 2 things, right? And so the teachers knew that it was important to do something for them.
Yeah.
We modified it. But to, again, make that moment for them to have that friendship connection, have fun together, bond, not only with each other, but with the teachers. But it's not without courage in the COVID, in the context of COVID. It's not without the courage of the adults to say, yeah, okay, we'll figure out all the testing and the masking and the how we're going to do it and where we're going to be. Are we going to be outdoors? Where are they going to sleep? We'll figure it all out to make that magic. But it's 15 or 20 more steps with COVID in the background. But anyway, yeah.
No, but thank you for making those efforts and leading the charge toward that. What excites you the most? This is a tough question, but what excites you the most about this new role that you've been in?
I am super excited to watch the kids grow. They change a lot between kindergarten. I mean, they change a lot between like K and 1 and 2. Just it's that time of life, the development of the body and the mind is really remarkable in those early years of life. I mean, I've been in upper school, so they change a lot from 7 to 12 too. That's true, but not as much as from a 5-year-old to a 12-year-old. And to watch them just bloom and grow and become the person that, first of all, they are inside of them. I learned this primarily as a parent. You probably have too. That they're born a certain way and some of those things are going to be how it is, no matter what the environment is. So help to see, okay, well, who is that? Who is that in there? But then also to make a difference, to create an environment, whether it's a physical environment, we talked about the physical environment, or just the loving community environment that also shapes their expectations for themselves and how they treat other people and what they can expect out of life, what they can expect out of relationships, what they can expect out of learning. So to, like I look at the kinders or the first or even the second, I mean, I think of this with the older ones too, but like the 6th graders, I won't be able to see them, but I'm really looking forward to seeing,
It's interesting to watch them. Later on, they'll get to take a performing arts elective. They'll join clubs. They'll join CSAL sports teams, and you see how they change and what their interests are. It's really cool. You are seeing it in real time. You have a 5th grader.
I know.
You have a 3rd grader. You're seeing it happen. That's a really unique perspective. You're the dean of the lower school. Your daughters have teachers. Your daughters have classes. Your daughters are coming home and telling you about school. What's that been like? And even before you were the dean, you were experiencing the lower school through them.
Okay, so first of all, how lucky, right? Like I can get hugs from my kids midday. It's really, really lovely, and I feel really lucky. It's funny. I asked my kids. Well, when Zach said, "Oh, he's going to be leaving," I didn't tell my kids before we announced to faculty because I thought they would spill the beans to their friends and then it would get out. So that night we were driving home and I said, "Oh, I got to tell you guys, I'm going to be, the dean of the lower school." And there's a pause, like silence in the back. Well, the first thing they said was, "What? We like Mr. Leonard." I said, "I know, me too." But then I said, what do you guys think? Especially my older girl, because I thought, okay, she's in 4th, she's going to be in 5th. Like, maybe she's not going to think it's so cool that I'm the dean of the law school. But they're still very happy to have me around, you know? So they wave to me. So I get to see them. The teachers, my children's teachers, I just have a lot of aloha for them because I think it takes like a parent teacher conference to a whole new level. When you have to sit down with like your boss. And I try and really verbalize like, okay, you guys, I'm taking off my dean hat and I'm putting on my mom hat. And I try and let my husband talk most of the time because I'm like, okay, maybe that'll help. So, I really just appreciate the honesty and the support that they show our family, as a mom. Because I think it's not the easiest thing.
No. Yeah.
But they do it. They're honest with me. They answer my questions, my mom questions, frankly.
There's a lot of tough questions. I've been to those open houses in those classrooms, and Iolani School parents have good questions.
Yeah. So, just like I said before, we're raising children with our families, and the teachers here are helping me raise mine. And my husband and I are very, very thankful. Yeah.
You've been involved in the lower school. Previously, you were the Dean of Studies. That's a K-12 position. Some people might think of it as an upper school position because of where your office was.
Yeah.
In the McNaughton administration wing. But it's a K-12 position, so you've been working with the administration and the teachers in the lower school. So it's not entirely new to you.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to sit down and talk story with you about that position, Dean of Studies. Michael Lemusio now has that position, and he is a podcaster, and so I will be interviewing him at some point, and that'll be interesting to sit down with him and ask him about that role he's in. But briefly describe what the Dean of Studies at Iolani School is.
The primary role of the Dean of Studies is to oversee and have a handle on K through 12 curriculum. In its most basic definition, that would be, do we have the curriculum in written form, recorded, mapped? And then are we having the kinds of conversations that help us to ensure that for example, when a student goes from one grade to another, that there's a smooth transition academically. We want to minimize gaps. We want to minimize the leaps that kids need to take. We want to make sure that, when they left grade 3, things pick up at grade 4 with the appropriate amount of also push, right? Because they're getting older. So that is sort of the primary role, and that informs a whole bunch of conversations that the Dean of Studies has with faculty about the work that they do. It also has just a ton of other operational responsibilities that don't necessarily have to do with that, but that I think are important to the running of the school. So the Dean of Studies oversees ITS, oversees the registrar's office, does a whole bunch of things with upper school registration, does a whole bunch of things, is a member of the lower school leadership team, and is a member of the curriculum and instruction team in the lower school. So there are also all of these other sort of operational.
Yeah.
And then I always felt like wherever I can help, wherever I can build bridges, wherever I can pull community together, like I was there. I tried to, so we, like organizing community day, for example, that's not really a K-12 curriculum thing, but I think that's important. Yeah. Like if we really want to continue to be the Iolani that I definitely fell in love with over these years, we've got to know each other. We've got to know each other. We've got to know the history of the school. We've got to spend time with one another. And so pulling together that team I wish I could say all those ideas for community day were mine. They're totally not. None of them were. But getting the right people together who would know how to do that well, I took that really, really seriously too. So
I envision that in the senior admin meetings that you have every morning, there's things that surface and people need to fill in gaps, and it's like, need to step in. And
that's how senior admin works. It's not just for the dean of and not just for the dean of studies, and not just COVID taught us. Mm-hmm. There were so many things to do, JT. I mean, I tell you, we were.
And they affect all tangents
and all these extra things, like distance learning. That's a whole new realm.
Yeah.
And we were all of senior admin, stepping out of our normal roles to say, okay, what needs to get done so that we can help teachers be ready to Zoom in a week, help kids be ready to Zoom, figure out, or when we're coming back, figure out all the operations necessary to do that safely. So everybody was sort of stepping in and
I do want to touch upon that, because you were in the leadership role in creating the Iolani School distance learning and reopening plans.
Yeah.
What was that like? That whole process. Because Iolani, it didn't start doing that when school shut down, or when we had to Zoom in. There was a long preparation time.
Yeah.
And that kind of was the key to the success of that stage.
I'm gonna sound a little broken recordy. It's that whole ohe hana nui ke alu'ia. So it was actually Scott Weaver who said sometime in January, and we went out in March, if you remember, right before spring break in March, we went to distance learning.
March 16th.
And I mean, I was overseeing IT at the time, so I had regular meetings with him. But he came one day and he said, Mel, and at that point in January, not even the continent was thinking about it yet, the mainland. COVID had been popping up in Asia, and but he said, Mel, do we have a plan for closing down school? And I thought,
whoa.
And no. So he planted that seed.
Yeah.
And then we went to talk to Tim, and then we actually went to NAIS that year, a whole bunch of senior administrators and teachers, and that was the topic in February. And we came back from that. I started pulling together resources, looking at schools in Asia had distance learning plans because they had to go earlier than us. Reading up, what were people doing at that conference in Philadelphia. And then we came back and we had to implement it. And I think one of the things that I realized was, as an administrator, I would think to myself, okay, I've got this plan, but now I've got to run it. Now I've got to make sure, check in and ask permission almost. And I remember Tim saying, you're it, do it.
Yeah.
I was somebody else going to look at it? And he did look at it. Yeah. And Zach looked at it, and Aster looked at it. I mean, we all looked at it. But it was I don't know what I was thinking. Is some higher power going to tell me that this whole distance learning plan, the way that we're going to do this for goodness knows how long, is the right way? But no, it was me. It was me that had to say, okay, that's the best thing I could do. And it turned out good.
It turned out really well.
But I think we all realized things needed to get done for the pandemic, and nobody else was going to get them done except us. So do we need to order hand sanitizer? Reed would be okay, that's me. I'll do it. Mm-hmm. Who's going to put up the signs for the direct traffic in the upper and lower school? Okay, that's us. We're putting up the signs, Yeah. So anyway, the distance learning. So, the IT team, again, the way they stepped up, not just Scott, certainly, but his whole team to get the infrastructure set up. And then we have the tech advisory group, which is a committee, and then the K-12 curriculum committee, which is led by the dean of studies. They're faculty members. And in this particular case, the tech advisory group, I went to them and I said, okay, you guys, we need to do a series of trainings. It needs to be us like you. I need you guys to think about like what do your faculty need, like your people in your department, and then what would you be willing to lead over this spring break? Because we closed the day before spring break. School is going to open in another week, and it was going to be online. And again, before they left, we were able to train teachers just on Zoom, like how to use your iPad for Zoom. But we wanted to give our teachers more. Our teachers wanted more, not just how to turn Zoom on, but how do you manage the classroom in Zoom? How do you have small group discussions in Zoom? How do I give a test in Zoom? How do I do a good discussion in Zoom? Teacher, this is so classic. It's so classic Iolani, JT, right? Like they didn't just want to do it. They wanted to like kick it out of the park.
Yeah, what are the things that are going to be difficult? What are the things that are actually going to make something easier?
Yeah.
Or what?
How am I going to be excellent?
Yeah.
Teachers, right?
Within
they want to know
framework.
How am I going to be excellent even in this situation? And it was the tech advisory group. These are teachers who themselves were trying to gear themselves up, who said, okay, we'll do it. And they did like a ton of research. They put together slide decks so that, because they hosted these online too, because we weren't allowed to have people together. So they learned how to use Zoom really, really, really well so that they could run sessions for teachers. And some of those sessions, I mean, you've been in Zoom, JT. I mean, some of those sessions had like 60 people.
Yeah.
Right? And they did their best to really deliver. So they delivered a set of sessions that spring break. They ran sessions during the quarter. Then there was another set you could sign up for in the summer. And so when we got a lot of positive feedback, right, from families, we did distance learning really well. And it's because of those teachers that knew exactly what their colleagues needed. And teachers want to learn from other teachers too.
It was a great job in Scott identifying it, and then you guys starting early. I remember my office is in the Nangaku building, and you'd leave, and then classes were outside. All of the kids were on their iPad.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? We're practicing.
Yeah.
The teacher was somewhere else, and they had spread out so that they're not using all the same Wi-Fi, but they were practicing being together as a class for Zoom.
Yeah. And you know what? That test, JT. So we are a community of planners, right? Prior to COVID.
That.
I mean, COVID shows that too. But like, when I say planners, I also mean like, we've existed a long time. It's a general expectation that there be a lot of lead time before something happened. Have we calendared it? Have we let people know? You shouldn't be asking somebody today to come to a meeting tomorrow. That's not the way we honor each other's time. But that test, I mean, it was like Monday, and we were like, okay, guys, we don't know what day we're going to go out. We need you to test it like tomorrow. If you can, please, tomorrow. And then the next day, because, right, you don't see all the classes in the upper school schedule. And even the lower school, right, like, I know this is going to disrupt, but we need you to test it tomorrow. And everybody did it. Everybody. Not a whisper of complaint. Everybody was like, absolutely, we're on it. And then you walked out, right, of your office and you saw them all out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But the teachers, they just jumped right in. Learning new tech, keeping up with kids, even though they're not in your room every day.
So
being super flexible.
We're still dealing with this.
Yep.
We don't know what's ahead, but I know that at some point we're going to look back at these years and recognize the tremendous challenges that were forced upon the world, schools, this school, and what the challenges that were met. So thank you for all you did and continue to do.
I really think, JT, that in terms of thinking of silver linings, it was the crisis of our age to help us remember and re-experience what one team is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So I do.
I feel like for a time we were wondering, like, okay, are we still that place? Because all the changes, right? Physical changes. It's a growing place. It's a lot of new folks. People are retiring. Is it still the same place? A lot of questions, right? And what is one team? And what does it mean? And is it? Is it just a brand? Is it something we just put on our shirts? Blah, 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 blah. And COVID and the way people responded to COVID gave people the experience, okay, oh, this is one team.
Yeah.
This is what it is. And like in some ways you can't even describe in words. It's just the feeling, right, of people diving in together and accomplishing something hard together. So again, I would never want a pandemic to make you have to, I mean, you know, I wouldn't wish that on us, but it's something that was really good for our community in that sense, in that one team.
I agree with you.
Sense.
So the Dean of Studies position and the position you currently hold, Dean of Lower School, it's a K-12 school. And those two positions, you know, really kind of speak to that. What do you now as the Dean of Lower School, what do you want for the students of the lower school to have with them, to have in their pocket as they head not only into 7th grade, but into life?
Yeah.
Like what's the component here of the Iolani School education in K-6?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, and I don't think this is only a lower school thing. I think it's a schooling thing, but I think they should feel it very strongly in a lower school, is that they were loved, like valued. And you know, when you talk to older kids who were lower schoolers, they do reflect on those teachers that really took good care of them.
Yeah. Well, in May, they're going to come down here with their grad pictures and give it to their kindergarten teachers and their 6th grade teachers and their music teachers. It's awesome. Yeah.
All those teachers that saw, you know, that spark in them, had faith in them. So that's really important to me. Probably second to that is just confidence, right? Confidence that they have the skills they need to succeed as a student. You know, they know how to do school, but then also that they can have high expectations of what their future might hold. They have seen the arts at an awesome level, even as a lower schooler. They have seen robots, and they have used a fabrication machine, and they have gone on field trips and so they can have confidence that that they can expect, you know, wonderful things of their learning and their life. And they should continue to be curious and ask and look for things to learn and look for experiences that are going to like deepen and broaden their perspective.
And love learning.
Yeah.
You know, within this culture.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's a good bridge to out of the administration roles that you've had. Do you miss teaching? You were a teacher before that.
I do miss teaching. You might have to cut out this part that I'm about to say. The part that I don't miss is grading papers.
I know what you mean about that.
But even though the reason I say to cut it out because it's super important to do. It's probably one of the most important things you do for kids as a teacher is to like give them feedback. So
and to do it well, it takes a lot of time.
Oh, but I had lots of late nights with my papers. What I do miss though, there's just an energy that is created in a classroom, the synergy between kids and teachers. Oh, I do miss that. I mean, I walk around at recess. But it's not the same as a day to day. I know this kid because I've seen you every day for the last semester or year or years, right? So I do miss those relationships, and then I also miss I really like planning lessons. I still do. So sometimes the teachers will invite me, and I'm super excited to go, and especially. Because one of my sort of deep loves learning-wise is just Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian history. And so they'll invite me to come and do something. And I love to plan out, okay, what is that learning experience going to look like in that period? what will I give kids? Is that going to be the right thing for them? What's going to be the aha? So I learned the aha thing from Jeff Hackler.
Okay.
Who I miss. Oh, I miss him. I text him all the time. He was my mentor when I came as a new teacher. He was my like assigned mentor, but then he mentored me like, I still called him my mentor like last year. Anyway, and I don't teach exactly like him, but he had these like, at the end of class, the bell would ring. He'd have this drop the mic aha moment. Mm-hmm. And he planned for them. I mean, he carefully planned, whether it was the lecture or whatever he was doing, to have a like, boom, bell rings, out they go, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of teaching I aspired to. And it's also very enjoyable to think through, like, can I get to that moment where a kid goes like, oh, you know, like, oh, and you don't get it every day. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I hit that every day, but
I'm not exaggerating here. I got that from one of your classes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, remember about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, your class went to Iolani Palace.
Oh, yeah.
And held a trial.
The trial, yeah. I do remember that.
Simulation trial of Lauren Thurston in the throne room.
Yeah.
Where Queen Liliuokalani was put on trial by the annexationists.
Yeah.
And that was so special. It was amazing. You know, we got on the bus, we went down there, and they were all dressed up in costumes and had been practicing for their roles.
Yeah.
As lawyers, jurists, the Queen, Lauren Thurston, lawyers. You did Oli outside the palace.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
went into the throne room. So special to give the students that experience. And then the learning, creating that perspective on that time, the overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdom. Thank you for doing that. I mean, it's one of
remembering that.
It's easy for me to remember it because I'm not just saying this. That was so special. One of the most memorable things I've experienced here in the last decade working at the school.
Cool. I gotta admit, JT, I tell you, hearing about it now helps me remember and realize, like, wow, that was a moment.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I hope they practice. I hope they're wearing their outfits. I hope,
they did so well.
They did. Yeah. And that's the other thing that I miss about teaching. Kids rise. Charlie Proctor told me that once. I was very new as a teacher. He hired me, you know, pretty fresh. And he would just drop nuggets of knowledge, you know, on you. For a while, I was terrified of him, but he would, and he said, you know, the rising tide lifts all boats, and kids will rise to expectations, you know, and it's his way of saying, don't ever underestimate, you know, Iolani kids, and I think kids in general, but Iolani kids will rise, and that has stuck with me. You know, even though you've seen all my years teaching, there are kids who struggle. They're coming from different life circumstances, different educational preparation backgrounds. I mean, whatever's going on in their life, there are kids who struggle. But one way or another, they rise with us.
Yeah,
you know?
They really do.
Yeah.
When we talk about teaching, you were a history teacher in the upper school.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important to study history? I think, and I asked that question because I think we've probably heard them whispering this. I've heard it when I was a student. Maybe I even said it, but why do we have to study geometry? Or why do we have to study a foreign language? History. Why do we have to study history? I find it very important now because I'm older.
Yeah.
but what's your kind of the importance of knowing history?
Yeah. Ooh, it's gonna sound so cliche. The kids all know this saying, right? Like, so we don't repeat the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think fundamentally that's it. I think there are two things. Number one is, it's important to know who we are. So I believe that children need to know their own identity, personal identity. But part of a healthy understanding of your identity is knowing your family and their history, your cultural background, your community's background, the things that happened historically make you who you are. And the more you are aware of and understand your identity, the healthier life you live. I just think that. And then our communities, whether we think of them as our local community or our national community or the world, we are facing serious troubles.
Yeah.
You can pick any area, right? Environment and climate, race and culture.
These things are
economic.
not new.
They're not new.
Yes, and people might think they are, but
and
they
in
are
order
not.
to find excellent and innovative solutions, you have to have known what happened before. You have to know what are the roots of the problem in the first place, and what has been tried. I mean, the best inventors and scientists know this. They are deeply knowledgeable about the roots of whatever field they're in. And I mean, we have to find, and I believe we will, humans are very innovative people. But in order to do that and to find real solutions to those issues, you got to have a good sense of history.
Hawaiian history in particular increasingly fascinates me as we get older and we see things happening in the world, because these things aren't new. International relations, trade, tariffs, war, regime change, right?
Yeah.
Sustainability.
Yeah.
Who was more sustainable than the Hawaiians, living in the most isolated landmass on the planet?
Yeah.
There's so much to learn from and to be enriched by the study of Hawaiian history and Hawaiian culture.
Yeah, I think so. I think for me as a native Hawaiian person, it's been so exciting. It's made me really proud to watch the ways that the wider community, not just Native Hawaiians, but the wider community is coming to understand that the Native Hawaiian worldview has within it solutions to some of the troubles we have environmentally, but also just in the ways that we're getting along or not.
Yeah.
And then this makes me feel really old. You're going to have to cut that part out too. I used to think of myself as one of the youngest people in the room. And now I'm seeing next generations of adults that are Native Hawaiians that are even farther along in their deep understanding and pride of themselves as Native Hawaiians and what they have to contribute to not only the Hawaiian community, but to the wider community. So, whether you're at the university and you see, young Hawaiian people who are professors there, or you're out in the ag parks that are being developed in Ewa, you see Native Hawaiian young people really rallying for development of agriculture and not just houses, and being the ones there doing the science of the agriculture, integrating both Native Hawaiian practices and modern practices to make sure that there could be food on this island. To, Cat Fuller is already, among the generations of navigators, teaching the next generation. We lost Maopiailug. But there have been 6 generations. Generations meaning he taught Nainoa. That's one generation. Nainoa taught down. There have been 6 generations, and there are boats across Hawaii that now are learning centers for children, not just Hawaiian children. Just to see that Native Hawaiians are here they are living, they are contributing, they are, because a lot of times people talk about Hawaiians in past tense. And I say, we cannot talk about Hawaiians in past tense. We're here. But then also that they're doing this work with firm, and even a firmer foundation than I have in their identity as a Hawaiian person and their responsibility to carry forward the worldview and the cultural views.
And educators such as yourself playing a huge role in recent times in expanding that awareness. Here at the school, you created and introduced new course electives in Hawaiian culture in the upper school.
Yeah. And it makes me really proud. It has changed now that we talk, JT. It's a good walk down memory lane. Not just, it just makes me so proud to see Hawaiian language as part of our World Languages Department, to have our Founders Day, it's exciting.
When I went to school here, we knew of Kamehameha IV, King Kamehameha, Alexander Liholiho, Iolani.
Yeah.
But not to the extent of what the current students do. And the Founders Day has done a lot to enrich the history of this school and the understanding of our students and faculty and staff and community. Thank you for the role that you've played in Founders Day, and what do we look forward to in the future? Have we talked about that yet, or?
You mean for Founders Day or in general? For Founders Day, no. So over the years, one of the recurring themes that we really want to get across to students for Founders Day is, well, one, we want it to be an avenue for kids to learn about the history of the school. Not just about the king and queen, but about the people who made this place possible, right? So we've done that. There
are a lot of key figures and key points in the school's history.
And we try to bring folks who could speak to that or share that. The other avenue, not unrelated, though, is the legacy of service. So when you think of the king and queen and what their legacy is, it is one of service to the people of Hawaii, right? They got the hospital, they got money for the hospital and built that hospital. They started the 2 schools. They brought the Episcopal Church. So this idea that the ultimate responsibility that a person can have is a legacy of something that will serve others into perpetuity. A hospital that still exists, schools that still serve kids. My hope is that over time we have made, or we will make, the connection with our students that to live in the legacy, they live in the legacy of the king and queen. To live in that legacy means that you serve others, that a life purpose of yours is to serve others. Whatever you end up doing with your life, that you remember that you stand on the shoulders of others. Be a shoulder to stand on, for others. And I think, again, the stories of Father Bray or Father Stone, they have some of those same elements. People who sacrifice so that others could stand on their shoulders and achieve and have greater life expectations.
I think that the power of telling students, young people, of ways to be and elements of service and what one team is and what the mission of what Queen Emma was trying to establish for her people. It means a lot more when you can point to Eddie Hamada, Father Bray, Stone, David P. Kuhn, King Kamehameha IV, Queen Emma, and it becomes, you see the building blocks. It's not just my teacher. Or my school, or T-shirts that say something. Right. Super powerful.
And you also see that it is a value that we all share, regardless of ethnicity or geography or history. that so not all, many of the students at Iolani are not Native Hawaiian necessarily. So, do they understand the king and queen as part of their heritage? At least maybe not their cultural heritage. But when we talk about them, but then we also talk about Coach Hamada, or we talk about that, what I hope they understand is it does not matter where you came from, what ethnicity you were. Service to others is a common human value that we have to survive, to live well together,
Yeah, and it's not limited to...
Right. If you're Native Hawaiian, or if you're
or actual founder, or an actual alum, or an actual
or if
student,
you take a job that is that type of role, right? Like, you don't have to become, I don't know, the director of IHS to hold the responsibility to serve others somehow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it can be a coach, it can be an AD, it can be a teacher, it can be the IHS guy. We thank goodness,
And it can be, and it is you. You have a huge responsibility here. You've done so well. We're thankful that you're here, and the job that you're doing. And I don't know, it's like I go back to that earlier thing I was saying. It's just hard to conceptualize that whole thing about all the prides and joys that get out of those cars in the morning.
Yeah.
It's so special, and what they're going to learn throughout this journey, what we've been talking about, and how they're going to grow and serve the community.
Yeah.
A credit not only to you, you'll probably be the first one to say that. I'll be the second one. It's so many people, as you were saying, in that great. What's the saying again?
A'ohe hana nui ke alu'ia. Yeah.
And that means?
No task is too great when we all work together. Yeah.
But we do need leaders, and we do need people to show us the way and organize us. And you're one of those key people. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. And thank you for the time.
You can't see me, but I'm blushing.
We know how busy you are. We're very grateful for the time.
I have enjoyed this very much. This is a highlight of my week, of my time here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all that you do.